guys, and welcome back to Raw Yoga with me, Ruth Steele. So I've got the dogs with me today, and I thought we'd just begin by having a little bit of a chit chat so you can get to know me better. So grab a cup of tea or coffee, make yourself comfortable, and this is just going to be a little talk with you and I about how and why I started Raw Yoga, and also for you to meet the gang. So this is Mythos. She's a Greek rescue dog. My husband found her in Greece, actually in a bin, about 8-9 years ago. So she is very much the boss of the family. If you ever see her wandering in and out of our yoga tutorials, you'll see that she keeps the other dogs in line. But actually, it's been really nice because at first we had Mythos, and she's very self-sufficient, you know, she likes to keep herself to herself, she likes time in the garden. But actually then when we got Bruce, this is Bruce, say hello. Yes, baby. Bruce was my mum's dog, and when she passed away in 2015, we took Bruce in, and it's been a really funny dynamic because ever since Bruce and Mythos were together, they sort of even each other out. So Mythos wants a little bit more love because Bruce is so needy with love all the time, and then Bruce has become a little bit more independent, learning off Mythos, being boss lady of the house. So yes, I know, oh kisses, that's so nice, Mythos, thank you. And since we keep getting more and more dogs, Mythos has been become so much more loving, and obviously it's because I show you so much love as well, baby. Yes, I love you too. Yes. And this is the newest member of the Steele family. I know we're going to do some yoga in a minute, but we're having a talk. That's Mythos. This is the newest member of the Steele family, and this is Banksy, the Frenchie. Banksy belonged to a lovely friend of ours, and unfortunately she was moving, so could no longer care for him, and he'd already met our two dogs before. We knew that they got on fine, so he is the newest member of the family. And he's got very stinky breath. Apparently that's common among bulldog breeds because they breathe through their mouth a lot more. But he is so cute, and he's even more needy than this pig. And I used to think that Bruce was really needy, like needed love all the time, needed attention. And then this one came along, Banksy, and he is literally like a Velcro dog. He won't let you poo alone, you'll barely have a second alone. So if you've seen any of my photos on Instagram and you think that I'm putting the dogs there or that I'm spending ages taking photos, and that's not the case at all. Actually, I know that it shouldn't be done because it really downgrades the quality of your image, but sometimes I'll just put my camera on my phone and film my flow for progression and growth and to check alignment. But also sometimes there's something really cute that happens when I've been focusing in the background with these guys, and I'll just screenshot and put a filter on it, and they sometimes come out as the funniest moments. So yeah, this is the gang and my fur babies. So moving on to why I started Raw Yoga. As I mentioned, I lost my mum Debbie to cancer in 2015, and just prior to that actually I had been in an abusive relationship for nearly 3 years, and after losing my mum I just really felt like I was at that lowest point, like I'd aged 20 years above my actual age. There's people in the world that are going through some really difficult times. Some people have lost their whole families, you know, and I'm fortunate to have a sister around me still and a wonderful husband, and I'm so grateful for that, and so many amazing friends as well. But at this time when I was 25, having reached probably the lowest point I've ever been at with anxiety and depression and grief, and as well as mental health issues and baggage that I'd taken on from when I was in that abusive relationship, I just really felt like it's kind of like, you know, the Death Eaters in Harry Potter, when they're sucking your soul out of you. When you realise that you've been having trauma, or people in your life who have really, and events in your life that have really sucked the life out of you, it's just a really vulnerable place to be in. It felt very lonely, it felt as though I had to do something to make positive changes, otherwise it's that slippery slope that just keeps going down and down and down. Well, the whole reason that I started and that I've been talking about making a YouTube channel for the best part of probably over a year, all last year certainly, I kept talking about making a YouTube channel, and the reason that I didn't is because I've had a lot of my own baggage and mental health to sort of sift through and sort out as well. But as I say, the main reason I wanted to start this channel is to share my love of yoga and my teaching of yoga, to help other people find their own mental health support, and to provide as much free... Oh, I don't know if you heard that was Bagsy farting. And to provide as much free yoga as possible for those people who can't afford to make it to a class or a workshop or a training or any of these other things. So that really is the basis of why I've made this YouTube channel. And the reason that I started Braw Yoga, if you've never heard the word braw before, it's a Scottish word. And in 2015, after I'd just lost my mum, Callum and I were living in Glenshee, or closer up to Glenshee in Scotland, because Callum, my husband, is a ski and snowboard instructor. And it was probably, again, one of my darkest times. I was doing my own practice. I started my yoga practice in my bedroom there, where we were living at the time, just doing classes online. It was a 31-day introduction, or maybe it was a 21-day. It was a 21-day introduction to yoga with Wanderlust, which is an American company, and it was with an amazing teacher. I'll put the link below for the one that I started on, just to give you an idea. But that's kind of sparked my interest in the whole online yoga thing since then, because that was really when I was at one of my darkest times. So although I probably would do a class here and there, and I'd certainly been to yoga classes before, I felt the most at ease when I was practicing yoga just online in the comfort of my own home, where I had permission. I gave myself permission to go wrong and fall and practice doing inversions against the wardrobe and using walls and beds and props and just anything, really feeling like I was free from judgment, able to just key in on my own self-awareness and internal dialogue that was going on. And although a class is a fabulous energy and it's a fabulous place to go once you have a bit more discipline, so that you can try and shut out all of the rest of the distractions that might be around you, whether that's other people, seeing yourself in the mirror, that kind of stuff. If you're in a more challenging time at the moment, then please know that you are not alone, and that you can use tools like the internet and to really give yourself permission just to be where you're at the moment. And I know it doesn't feel like it. I know it feels so heavy, so scary at times, and so lonely as well. But you have what it takes to come out the other end and find the light. And again, it does not feel like it at the moment, but this experience is there for a reason, to teach you lessons, even if they're just simple lessons you can't even foresee right now, but compassion for yourselves and others, kindness, really learning to just be kinder to yourself, and in turn you're able to be kinder to other people. But if you're in that place right now, that's all you need to focus on, finding your own kindness, your own self-love. And this again is just really where I started from, when I was doing that class in my bedroom on my own, and just needed to find that own self-love. So hang in there, and you got it, and I believe in you. So just to tell you a little bit more about my background, I trained at the Guildford School of Acting, and that was an amazing 3 years. Looking back on that experience, it was quite mentally challenging. There was a lot of competition, there was a lot of, I guess really when I was growing up as a female, I'd always been taught to sort of compete with other girls, whether that was dance classes, singing, extracurricular, drama. I was kind of always experiencing from the society that we live in that boys will play team sports and they'll support each other, and girls tend to be a little bit more competitive or not necessarily compliment each other and that kind of thing. And without even really giving it much thought about how that was affecting me, that certainly then started to play out even more when I was at university. Just started to lose my own sense of self and confidence, I guess, that we all have as children. When you first watch how babies and young children behave, they're so unafraid of many things. For instance, just rolling around and moving and being, present with your body, being present with your breath and your speech and your sound. Children won't think twice about screaming at the top of their voice in a supermarket or in a church or wherever you are, or somewhere that's really quiet. Children won't think twice about really letting go of their throat chakra and their voice and their power. And then as we got older, and because we're a little bit conditioned by society, we're always taught to shh, or be quiet, or don't show off, don't do this, that and the other. And then so when we find ourselves in that space of needing to be loud or shake around, move the body, let go of energy and doubt and all the other thoughts that go racing through our head, when we come to that place of being able to do that, we're then suddenly fearful and we can't do that as much because of all these other lessons we've been taught about being quiet and conforming to society. So looking back now, there was a lot of self-sabotage and self-bullying that was going on when I was at university, because I was kind of at that crossroads where I wanted to find my confidence and my power and find my voice, but at the same time I had so much bullying going on in here that I was telling myself I was fat and overweight and not the best at performing and singing and whatever it was. So in turn, I can actually see how I attracted a person who was a bit of a Death Eater, a life sucker. So, as I said before, I came out of that experience with a lot of mental health baggage. I feel I have forgiven, certainly I've forgiven for my own sense of peace, but I really had got to that point where I knew enough was enough. And if you're in that situation where you're experiencing trauma with whatever relationship you're in or the people you're surrounding yourselves in, then just know that it doesn't have to stay that way. You have the power to make change, to step away from those people, even if it means you have to move somewhere completely different. You have the power to do it. But similarly to what yoga teaches us as a lesson in life, we cannot find growth without going through that little bit of uncomfortable pain. And actually, in some ways, it is essential to have a little bit of pain in everyday life, which helps us to deal with these really challenging moments that are painful in other areas of our life off the mat. So that's really how I see my whole experience of yoga kind of transforming every situation that I've dealt with in the past. Going back to bra yoga and the way where bra comes from. So it's a Scottish word, and when we were living up north, when I was in that time of, the lowest of the low, I decided to start yoga. I started my practice. I ended up being a fitness instructor and actually teaching some yoga before I'd even done my full yoga qualification. Wouldn't recommend doing that, and didn't tell you that. But there was a bit of a loophole because I was teaching it abroad at the time, so you didn't have to have the actual yoga certification, which is really cheeky, I know, and really sabotaging to other yoga teachers, so I hold my hands up and apologise. So I was teaching yoga before I had my full yoga certification, and I was just teaching from what I'd been doing online, other classes that I'd done before, what I'd self-taught and learnt online. So that was transformational for me, to be teaching so much fitness and yoga and kind of throwing myself in at the deep end. And if anything, I probably did that a little bit too much. Teaching like 40 hours a week of fitness, really boosting my endorphins and whatever, but I didn't really spend enough time processing everything and slowing down and finding a sustainable way to treat my mind as well as my body. And that's where the real yoga, after I decided to do my yoga training, that's where it really became helpful. So that's when I decided to start a business. I thought, I can see the transformational effects on my life that this has had, and this is what I want to do. This is what I want to share with other people. So I decided to start a business, and I had no idea what to call this business. I was speaking to my husband and his friends and just asking if anyone had any thoughts or advice, and my husband Callum's friend Stu said, "What about bro yoga?" And I was like, oh, that's got a ring to it, because at the time the guys, I was in this low point, and I'd see the guys coming home from their ski days, teaching skiing and snowboarding, and even first thing in the morning has always been the hardest for me, because that's when I suddenly remember my mum, or I'll remember the weight of anything that's happened in the mornings. And I would see everyone getting up at the crack of dawn. They'd be so excited to go out and teach what they love, or get the first lifts and get that first powder run, and they had so much passion about it, about what they were doing, and they'd come home from their days and be like, oh, that was a bra day, like really just positive and uplifting, and without me even realizing it at the time, that had a positive effect on me. So it really just seemed fitting to call it Bra Yoga, and 2 years down the line, here we are, and hopefully that explains a little bit more about why I chose the name. So I'm not going to ramble on for too much longer, as I'm going to record some new yoga flows for you, and again I'm going to give loads of options. I'm also qualified to teach in pre and postnatal yoga, so I want to go through some salutations that give loads of variations for pregnant women or somebody starting out your journey. Again, remembering back to when I first started yoga, I would be doing 5 to 10 breaths in a downward dog, and then need to take my child's pose because my breath would be racing. And actually, I'm going to share a funny story with you about my fitness journey on the wider scale, let's say. So I've always been active as a person. When I mentioned I've always done extracurricular activities, I've always danced, I did ballet, tap, modern, that kind of stuff from when I was I started as a child, age 5, then I gave it up for years and came back into it about 15. And at that stage I was quite overweight, and I'd spent a lot of my life overweight. I was bullied as a child for being fat, and all these things that I'd carried on my shoulders that had kind of started to make me a little bit harder, let's say, or a little bit more aware of how cruel other people can be. But let me tell you now, the person that can be the cruelest is yourself. You are really the person who can do yourself the most damage. So I'd taken on these comments from others from an early age when I was struggling with my weight, and I'd kind of then learned that pattern to start talking to myself in that way. So even when I came back to doing more exercise and dancing and whatever, I never really had the self-belief because of the bullying. So even though I enjoyed it and it was providing me with all the stuff that I know it now does, like letting off energy and finding our power and our confidence and our voice, it can be energizing as much as exercise can be grounding and centering ourselves. But at the time I didn't know this. I was just getting the benefits from doing activity, but actually I never really had the belief in myself to think that I could go running and achieve anything like a half marathon, or enter something like a dance competition and think that I could win or whatever. So yeah, I would love doing exercise, but I'd never really have the self-belief. So then when I was at that stage of being at university and loving it, and then suddenly falling into that abusive relationship, I put on weight. Obviously I was eating to mask my feelings, and I decided so many times on and off, and this is why my weight would fluctuate a lot, I'd be like, no, I need to do something about it. I'd join the gym, and this is the story I'm going to tell you. So at a time when I was much bigger than I am now, and when I was struggling, I joined a gym, and I think it was just like a pure gym, one that you can go to anytime. And they were doing this introductory offer where the PT spent some time with me and took me on the cross trainer, and it was something like a challenge to burn off the amount of calories that you eat in a Jaffa cake. I can't remember what that was, like 110 calories. I don't know, I don't count calories, but anyway, it was the challenge to burn off the amount of calories that you eat in just one Jaffa cake, which seemed doable, seemed achievable. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. This is my first day at the gym. And this guy, who was fairly good looking, took me onto this cross trainer and was like, you know, giving me all of the teaching points and enthusiasm, being like, you know, come on, a bit harder, a bit faster, a bit this, that, and the other. And I shit you not, I'd been on the cross trainer for about 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and I started to just feel overwhelmed with the sense of embarrassment by this attractive guy who was looking at me sweating and not wearing makeup, and you know, I felt like he could feel that nervous energy that I had, that I didn't believe in myself and that I couldn't do it. I suddenly started to feel sick, and then I obviously felt embarrassed and annoyed with myself that I was feeling this way so soon and not being able to complete the challenge. And I honestly had to stop. I had to say, I feel unwell, went into the ladies, I wasn't sick, but I realised I'd worked myself up in such a way that the only person who was ever holding me back from achieving any goals was me, because of letting everything else get on my shoulders, letting that internal dialogue get in the way, letting my body image get in the way. You know, so many times I remember if I was doing a type of exercise, not necessarily yoga, it could be anything like a Zumba class. If I was dancing in the mirror and moving in a certain way, I'd catch sight of myself, and then that internal dialogue would stop me actually reaping the benefits, the full benefits, let's say, of the class, because I was more worried about the way I looked. If I was just on all fours or doing a plank, I would forever be looking at my belly. I would even feel my fat roll that was hanging down, and I'd miss a good 5-10 minutes of that class or whatever I was doing by focusing on the aesthetic of my body and how it looked, rather than just really letting go of all that shit and getting into the body and sussing out how you feel. And that's where the true transformational growth happens. So I wanted to just share that story with you, because wherever you are in your journey, you know, we all start somewhere. And even if you just start with the self-belief that I am going to step on my mat today and do 5 minutes breathing, then that in itself is an achievement. And once you've achieved that, you'll go on to then maybe hold a downward dog for 10 breaths. That's an achievement. Maybe you want a little bit more, you'll do a whole flow. It's like Lewis Howes says, the ex-basketball player and entrepreneur. If you've not listened to some of his podcasts, then I really recommend them. But it's like he says, even just making the bed in the morning is a goal, is an achievement. And once you've set that goal, you know, you've set the bar, you've achieved one goal of your day, why not go and achieve another one by resisting those donuts that you see at office and having a healthier lunch instead? You know, like, you feel more motivated and more passionate about making positive changes and positive goals once you set that bar achievable, like simply just making the bed in the morning or getting out of bed in the morning. Remember, if you're struggling and if you're in a place of anxiety or depression, it is such a goal to just get out of bed in the morning, even if you're still in your dressing gown. Give yourself that kindness and that uplifting boost that will do you so much good just by celebrating the small things. If you manage to make yourself a cup of tea or make a healthy choice by choosing a healthy breakfast, then give yourself affirmations. You know, this is still a love language. One of the 5 love languages is affirmation. So even if you're just saying it in your head, or if you're saying it aloud, I did really well, I ate a healthy breakfast. I did really well, I got out of bed. I did really well, I stepped out the front door and put on my trainers, and that is enough, that's a goal. And anything past those goals, you know, is even better, even more success. So I hope this gives you a little bit more of an insight into the way I'm now thinking, the way I've made positive changes to how I speak to myself, how I speak and treat others, and you can do it too. You know, if you're struggling, then keep going, you can do it. Everything is a practice. The way that you think is a practice, just like when we're doing postures on the mat, the way we treat other people, the way we eat, the way we act, it's all a practice. So anything is achievable if we put in practice, 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 and all is coming, like they say. So thank you so much for joining me for this quick get to know, and it was completely unscripted. I just hope it gives you a chance to sit down and get to know me a little bit better and just have a heart to heart. So thank you so much, and please do join me on the mat for some yoga flows. If you are new around here, then please like and subscribe to the channel. That really does help make it possible to keep on sharing free yoga with people that can't afford to go to a class and might be struggling. So please do your best to subscribe and share these videos with your friends, your family. Share it with that guy that you know that has back problems and needs to find a little more core. Share it with that person that is most negative in your life, and you know that they're a little bit of a life sucker, but you want to keep them around, but you know it's them that has a lot of self-work to do. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of your day, whatever you're doing, and really take care of yourselves. Namaste.